David Savage, aka Diz, and this is The Force Always.
Okay, so welcome to the show. Let's get on with the news. So we have a Clone Wars review later on in the show. It's episode 8. It's called Together Again, Clone Wars, which is on Disney+. I'll give you a review of that later in the show in the review section, so stick around for that. To more Star Wars news, The Rise of Skywalker, Star Wars Episode 9 has been out on shelves for just over a week now. It did come out early, thinking that there was going to be a lockdown here completely with even, entertainment retailers, so they made it a bit earlier here, I did notice, which was sort of good. Got myself a copy of that before anything happened. But it is number one here on the entertainment brand of retailer here. Is it number one? That's pretty obvious. Got to see how long that will last for. But that is now out. You can get on Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, digital, and that's it. To more news, speaking of The Rise of Skywalker, will The Rise of Skywalker come to Disney Plus this Easter weekend? I would like to see it happen, but it may. It just depends on how the digital sales are going. I suppose it really all depends on that. Not really the Blu-ray or DVD, 4K, things like that. But I do think that Disney Plus may release it this Easter weekend worldwide. Maybe just in America, unsure, but just keep your eyes and ears peeled for that on Disney Plus if you've got it. And pretty much that's the Star Wars news for this time around. Let's get into views. Views is not about one's channel on the amount of views they get or even subscribers. It's not really predictions. It's my story ideas. It could be within a trailer. It could be within a movie, a standalone movie. It could be a poster, anything like this, like that has a story to be told about it. So we've really got Clone Wars happening with the Star Wars community at the moment. That's on Disney Plus. It's a really good animation, very well pictured and animated in its sort of style. But anyway, the character that's starting to come back in once again in our lives is Maul. Some of you guys out there may know as Darth Maul. He got the title dropped from him being a Darth ever since he sort of went on his own in the story timeline, that is, not real life. Yes, and look, he's coming back into the picture of Clone Wars. What I would like to see happen within the story is definitely a heavy weight on Maul to really sort of start from now all the way to the end, really have this sort of work itself up to the very end of this Season 7, the final season of the Clone Wars. Really heavy on the character and a lot about Crimson Dawn, which is the crime syndicate he works with or around. And that then could then be developed into some more story ideas within Star Wars. I think it's a really good aspect of Star Wars that has come of light recently, like really interesting. That more underground criminal element really suits Star Wars, like bounty hunters, like the Mandalorian we've got and things like that. And so I'd like to see, and what I would push really hard now, even though the story's been written, is Maul and this Crimson Dawn crime syndicates that are really coming to heavy play in the story to just develop that side of Star Wars more and more, with more stories to come, whether it's through animation or even TV live series, live action series that is, or even a possible movie, because it seems to be a very fun and creative idea. And so that's my pretty much views for this time around. It's simple again, but just sort of concentrating of what we've got now in Star Wars. And at the moment, Clone Wars is really the headlining news for all Star Wars fans. Anyway, let's get into reviews. Speaking of the Clone Wars, Episode 8, Together Again, the Clone Wars on Disney Plus, has just aired hours ago. By the time you get this uploaded, it will be around less than a day, being released. Definitely straight off the bat again, 8.5 out of 10. This actual particular episode had a real just drama to it, a really good build up, great visuals, great lead into the future next episodes, and it had a very theatrical sort of feel. Like just the music really worked well with the story here. It gave us a bit more insight about Maul coming up. It gave us more insight about the Pikes, which is that clan. And it was just interesting. I found it to be entertaining. It's still subtle. It wasn't like a hardcore rememberable particular episode like maybe the end of season 5 and end of season 6. They were really memorable episodes within Clone Wars. But I did think this one really sort of started off great, really drove to the end. Why I gave it 8.5 out of 10. It was bringing some interesting characters that have some interesting backgrounds, not just because they're popular, but I think they have just great psychological edge, especially Maul. And so that's again, so 8.5 out of 10 for that particular episode. Check it out now. Disney Plus right now. Anyway, so that's my review for this time around. Let's get into the interviews. It's a 2Q, which is 2 questions I asked myself for you guys out there. Because we're in this sort of partial or complete lockdown around the world. Okay, so the first question, if you're going to do a lot of watching movies, TV series, you're bored as hell, you're going to be stuck at home, what is the one Star Wars thing you shouldn't watch? What is the one thing you shouldn't watch? And I'll tell you this. I reckon the last time I saw this was actually in 1978, if I can remember, 1977. I know I was seriously very young at that point. I do remember a really background memory of this, and it was, even then it was haunting. It just had this sad element to it. And I talk of the classic bad move on George Lucas's behalf, which is the Star Wars Holiday Special. It is seriously a real sickening feel, even though it has some great elements to it that is, with Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, the original actors, and Princess Leia in the actual thing. But when they start singing, especially when you go to the Wookiees' home, there's just it's a real gloomy, depressing type of thing you shouldn't watch. Just stay away from the thing. I hate to say this as a Star Wars fan, but it's just not good. I can't even, if I've ever rated it, I don't know what I've given it, but I know that I can't rank it because it's just too heartbreaking to even rate. But anyway, stay away from that. So my next question is, what is one Star Wars thing you should watch? Now this is sort of official and unofficial for Star Wars, but I tell you what, and it's actually probably the best, one of the best comedy movies of all time. It's a bit of an 80s sort of thing, so if you don't get 80s humor, you may sort of go, this is overrated. But Spaceballs, you should watch. It's a great spoof movie, great comedy. I got right into it back then. I still get into it now. I've got a DVD of it somewhere just sort of sitting there to be watched sometime in the future. But it's just, historical and hysterical. It's just amazing. I still use quotes today. I use some of the character names today in my everyday life. I don't know if it's a 10 out of 10, but I rank it pretty high. I'd say 9 out of 10. But it's definitely very 80s, but it is definitely comedy from start to finish, when comedy was really alive at the most back in the 80s on movies, the big cinema sort of screen. But I definitely would watch that. Spaceballs, try and find that somewhere, it's great. Anyway, so that's the question, that's my interviews for this time around. As we're under this big lockdown or partial lockdown across the world. I seem to be not on lockdown, but on rockdown, meaning I've been rocking more hours at my other work more than ever. So I've been really pushing it hard, but it doesn't matter. I'm still doing this as a weekly show, and I always will, I think. The Star Wars news, views, reviews, and interviews. If you've got a question, just ask myself with the either YouTube Messenger, or you can do Instagram or Twitter. Just check that out. And until next time, keep rocking.